overfed. So if I seem a little bit sleepy, blame the kitchen brethren. Okay, the food was so nice. So that was good. Thank you, and I hope you did pick a thing or two from the morning service, and we pray that God is with us this afternoon as we share a few ideas on personal finance. Now, I do share on this broad subject of personal finance various different aspects and topics. Some of you may have attended pre-COVID the NEC marriage retreat that used to happen, and I would share there in the context of family finances, in particular navigating money within the marriage context. And I do all sorts as long as it's about finances, okay? So this is just a small part of the bigger picture, so just in case you're thinking, well, I should have talked about this and that, well, there's a lot more, but we can't cover it in an hour-ish that I have, okay? And I would like to acknowledge those who are watching on Zoom. In the morning, I wasn't aware that we had an audience on Zoom. So, so bless you, and I hope you have a similar experience to those who are in here. All right, so personal finance is a favorite topic of mine, not because I'm an expert, but because I struggled, because we struggled with money for years. Not because we weren't getting paid, we were getting paid, okay, but didn't know where it was going. And many, many times my wife would ask the question, you're a university lecturer, the lecturers don't get necessarily, paid over the top like CEOs in companies, but you get paid a decent wage. Where is it all going? And I couldn't answer that question. Where is it all going? And we, at some point, were in so much debt. Not on the mortgage. We didn't even have a mortgage. We didn't even have a house. Okay? But we had tons of debt on credit cards and loans and overdraft. If NatWest was to pull the overdraft, we would be homeless instant because we were relying on a £5,000 overdraft. And we were always maxed up before payday. Okay? So when the pay comes in, it would not even go above zero. You know what I'm talking about? Because I don't get paid $5,000. Okay? It's way below that, okay? So pay comes in, it doesn't even go beyond zero to the positives. It was always on minus. I missed that. Anybody closer to tell me? Oh, it's better now. Oh, yes. No. Oh, yes. Thank you. Now with overdrafts, you can whiz past zero. Before, when I started working 23, 4, 5 years ago, you had to have money in the account. If you don't have money, you're stuck. But now, if you have an overdraft, you can whiz past zero and go into the negatives to minus 5,000 like we did. Not a good place to be, especially when you have a family, you have children, and all of them are looking up to you. Say he's got it, he's got us covered. And you haven't got a clue what is going on. And that's the opposite of stewardship, the opposite of good stewardship. We say it in the morning, stewardship is good management, caretaking on behalf of the master. Okay, so that's what really brought me into this space. Yes, I have studied construction economics and finance, and so I do money in the context of construction, money and contracts. That's my specialty, just in case you are wondering. But that didn't help. Okay, I had all the letters behind my name, but we were always broke, and gave up on buying a house because we thought, it's not possible, can't be done. Then somebody, good friend of mine, church member, rang me once and said, have you ever come across this book? I said, what book? It's a book by Dave Ramsey. I said, what? It's called The Total Money Makeover. I said, whatever is in that book, I need it right now. We need a total money makeover. Cut the long story short, I went on YouTube, looked up some videos by Dave Ramsey, and I thought, what? There's actually some basics about money management. There's some science, if you like. I call it science loosely, as in there are ways to manage money better. I thought it's just trial and error, and mostly it was error for us. Okay, now obviously coming from Africa, I worked in Botswana for years. Nobody would lend you money there, okay? You had to have money. Whatever you needed to do, you had to have money. Coming here, everyone wants to lend you money, especially if you've got a decent job, long-term, etc. Getting letters from the banks, from credit card companies, and, even when we're in debt, the bank says, we want to have a look at your finances, a financial health check. I said, good, they love us, they want to help us. We went to NatWest and they did the financial check. They said, look, we could consolidate all your debts from the credit cards into one small repayment. I said, great, because at the moment we can't breathe. And they did that. But before they finished the process, they said, by the way, is there anything you would like to buy? Maybe a new car, maybe so. You are pre-qualified. You could borrow up to £7,000. And I said, really? This is in the days of our foolishness, okay? So this is context, right? I said, really? He said, yeah. Then we spoke with the missus, and I think we could do with we had no plan for that money. That's the worst place to be in, where you have a windfall, whether it's a tax return or a tax repayment, or your flight has been delayed and they pay you that 500 or 600 pounds or whatever windfall, or a loan in this case, and you have no plan for it. Worst place to be. I don't know what we did with that money, if you ask me today. But the worst part is, we did that consolidation, and before we knew it, we were back in debt again. All the credit cards started to grow slowly until they were maxed up again. Why? Why do you think? Because something had changed. We had a debt consolidation. Why shouldn't we be in a much better place financially? Why? Why do you think? Okay, that's a good one. Okay, that's a very good one. We'll definitely come back to that one. Yeah, we started spending heavily again, yes. Were you reading my script? Our mindset hadn't changed. Our financial IQ, our financial knowledge hadn't changed. We were still the same. What we knew was still the same, which is not much, okay? Our habits and lifestyle was the same. So there's only one way to go. It's back where we were. And all those answers you gave, by the way, are correct. We were spending more than was coming in, and we didn't even know it. It was just on autopilot, okay? So I share that. Was that a hand? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's a good health warning, by the way. I've got nothing against the banks. They're businesses, and very often they do their business well, but they have a business to run. Okay? They have a business to run. That's why I don't trust healthcare systems where you pay at the point of receiving treatment. Because my sister was once told she had an agent operation to be done back in South Africa because there was some growth somewhere, and they needed to operate quickly. And of course, she had health insurance. And she said, well, okay, but I just came for a routine checkup, and so what is the problem? No, we need to do it within the next few days. I thought, okay, I'm just going to take a second opinion. Took a second opinion from another doctor locally, and they said, don't know what the other doctor is talking about. Went to Zambia, another doctor, and they said, we can't see what they're talking about. And no operation, to cut the long story short, was ever done, fit and healthy to this day. And I thought, right, okay. So anyway, I digress. So the bank is in business. And sometimes they're self-serving, if not all the time. And so we need to be careful. That's why we need to upgrade our financial IQ, our know-how, what we know about money. And only you can look after your money the best way possible. Nobody else can ever look after your money better than you. So it's your money, not theirs. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's a very good point. And I'm not talking about hoarding money or anything like that. It's about managing. And that managing includes, as we said in the morning, earn all you can. Save all you can for future needs, emergencies, and they happen. And spend prudently, invest all you can, and give generously. Those are the principles I try to live by. But anyway, moving on very quickly. So I share that just to show you that I'm not an expert, I'm a learner. We are all in this together. And that if you're struggling, it's okay, it's normal. That's what is normal. But we can try to change that by God's grace. And information is very helpful, but you need to act on it. You need to implement. Otherwise, it's no good. Is that still off? Okay. So regardless of who you are, I've worked with accountants, with people in finance, and who are bad with money. So anybody can be bad with money. And anybody and everybody can learn something about being better. Okay? Yeah? I learn every day. Because I have to teach others. I've got to be at the top of my game, whether it's in my profession or in the area of personal finance. Brethren, I don't know what I'm doing here. So I've turned it on. Yes, it is on. It's showing on. And I'm clicking forward, and nothing is happening. Okay, so let me try again. Forward. Yep, that's happening now. That's good. Okay, so you don't need to see that, but I've already made the point. Regardless of those letters behind my name, we struggled with our finances. It doesn't matter who you are. It's best to learn something about better money management. And I think the best legacy you can leave for your children is not a big pot of money, but it's a capacity to earn, but also a capacity to manage. That includes investments, it includes everything else. By manage, I'm using that term holistically. Okay, that's what I try to do with my boys and girls, is to teach them the principles of money management, so that even if I don't leave them $1 million, which I'm not going to be able to, I know they'll be okay. They'll do very well. Why? Because I learned what I now know in my 40s. They're learning that when they're 12, 16, 18, 17. Yeah, I nearly forgot that one. So disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. Certainly, I'm not your financial advisor. Okay? I am a money coach, a personal finance coach. I know quite a bit about finances, and I am still studying for that elusive qualification to be a financial advisor. Okay? But in the meantime, take this as general information for your growth, for you to further research, look into if it's helpful. So some of the things that we'll cover in this session is basically the foundations. I find that I've talked about investments and people get excited about investments. But the basics, the foundation, is weak, and therefore there isn't even any money to invest because they're hemorrhaging money just like we were. We weren't able to buy a house because we had no foundation in terms of the management of our finances. So hopefully we'll look at understanding the importance of managing our finances and a little bit about creating a budget that works and tracking spending and, of course, accommodating any changes that come along the way. If you want anything else, well, you can get in touch. Ehud has got my contact, and we can always do something, whether it's via Zoom or whatever else. First question, how do you feel about your finances as they currently stand? Is there any word on the screen there that perfectly captures? Anybody brave enough to say something? Excited, okay. Are you at uni? Have you just started work? Just started, okay, that's exciting. And this is, I wish there was a Victor Samwinga somewhere, when I just started work. Honestly, I remember my dad saying, son, I've got a plot of land for you here in Zambia. If you can build a house there, that would be great. That would be a huge investment. I was living in Botswana at the time, which is just next door in another country. It was the last thing on my mind. Brand new car was the thing, so that I can drive around and show I'm a graduate of the Copperbelt University in Zambia. I've done a construction engineering degree. Why should, so I bought that car. And it was on a lease agreement. After a few years, I think it was 4 years or so, plans changed. We decided to move to the UK. And I thought, okay, the car, yes. Called them up. What's the story? Said, well, if you want to have it, you have X amount of thousands to pay. I said, well, so what about what I've paid? Said, well, it's for the privilege to use the car. I thought, wow. So I put in so much money into that car. Nothing wrong with buying a car, by the way. I've said that in the morning, but I put in so much, and I have nothing to show for it. I built that house, 1998 to the year 2001. It would have bought me a few cars going forward. Yeah, I regret. That's the biggest regret I have. Focusing on liabilities, as Robert Kiyosaki refers to it, things that take money from you and not things that put money in your pocket. Big lesson. So anyway, excited. I wish I had somebody speak to me about finances at that stage. Anybody else with a different, yes? What was that? Scout? Oh, that kind of training. Okay. Ah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 Yep. Spending. I can imagine. Oh, absolutely. This. You could have done things differently. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for being candid. And our younger brothers and sisters need to hear that there are better ways of doing life than just be sort of sucked into the standard approach, which is just spend, spend, spend. You need to spend accommodation on all the nice things, holidays, whatever. But you also need to be working on a plan. The problem is most of the times we have no plan, long-term plan. There's no plan the next 3 years where by God's grace, where do we want our family to be? The next 5 years, the next 10 years. No plan, just on autopilot. You will arrive, but it won't be a desired destination to be any destination. And that could be old, broke, and desperate. Okay? All right. I hope that, with time, maybe even after today's session, they can be hopeful, excited, maybe even content, okay? And I know that from experience, because when we moved into this country, I was a student. And we were on a student stipend for one person. But we made do with my wife, and it was enough. And we were the happiest at that point. I think it was just £600 a month. Okay, now obviously that's a long time ago, but factoring in inflation, still, it wasn't a lot of money, honestly. But we made do. Yeah, we managed. We lived in shared accommodation because we couldn't rent a whole place by ourselves. And then 2 years later, the Lord blessed us. I got a PhD studentship, and it was £1,000 a month. Yes! £400 more, tax-free. Whoa, this is good. But we started to see a bit of struggle. £600, we were doing okay. £1,000, we felt a little bit poorer. What's going on? And after 3 years, the Lord opened another door, moved to Newcastle, a lecturing position. And that more than doubled that income. And it was at that point that we then started to struggle. The income was more, but our wants as well were much more. Not our needs. Our family grew, yes. But to be fair, our garage today, you need a health and safety. Where's the brother? Is it you? Yes. You need a health and safety risk assessment before you get into that garage, because it's full of rubbish from over the years. And that's not something I'm very proud of. There are many reasons why we have to talk about practical money management, more than we currently do, especially for our younger people. And we have made all the mistakes we made. Elder, I'm with you. I'm 50-ish in January. 50, not 50-ish. I'm 50 in January. And I'm not growing younger. And so time is, is catching up on. Yeah. But the younger you are, the more blessed you are. Yeah, when I show my young people, my children, say, look, if you make that move, there's no reason why you should retire broke. Okay, small little moves, just knowing what you need to do. Okay, you don't need to earn a whole amount. I say, if you want to be a cleaner, be a cleaner. If you want to be a teacher, be a teacher. If you want to be anything, it's not about the income. It's what you do with it. Okay, so quick run through. I know you know why money is important. Number one is financial ignorance is huge. I had a PhD, but we were financially ignorant. Doesn't matter. Okay? I did construction economics. Okay? Number two, money is a taboo. in many of our cultures, we don't really talk about money until, things are really, really, really bad, you know. Um, and of course, communication, sex, and money are the top causes of conflict in marriage. I have spoken to many families, many couples, where at the heart of the problems, it's money and how we are using it. How we, this one wants to go in that direction, this one is going in that direction, and the twain shall never meet. Okay, and of course, if we don't communicate well about those goals, then it's a disaster. It's a disaster. And of course, money worries, top cause of stress. A lot of stress and mental health issues around at the minute. So elders, church, I know that because I speak to many people. Many people call me from around the country, in fact, around the world. I spoke to a young man. I won't say much because this is going live. He was suicidal. And the reason was he had so much debt. Imagine if you were getting paid, let's say, I use pounds as an example, in their local currency. If you were getting paid 8,000 units, whatever the amount is, and more than 6,000 is going to debt repayments, okay? You're left with 2,000. Now, it's not 2,000 pounds. It's a local currency, which means, you're getting paid 8,000, 6,000 is going to pay all these money lenders, including payday loans. And they are and the brother said, honestly, if it wasn't for my mom, who's very ill and who depends on me, I wouldn't be on this planet. And I thought, oh, this is so sad. Really sad. So I worked with him, coached him a bit, and wrote to some of the lenders and did what we do. He's beginning to thrive. He's paid off 2 of the loans, and he says he's never been happier. He's never been in a better place than he is. So money worries, top cause of stress. And number 5, money and mental health are linked, and the relationship is, generally, researchers say mental health will make managing money harder. Because when you have those episodes, then sometimes you resort to things like, let's say, retail therapy and other, where you spend to medicate the inner turmoil and challenges. But then that makes your money situation worse. And then poor financial well-being, if you're in a bad place financially, that will also exacerbate your mental health. So it's really, really important that we pay attention to these subjects. I'll move on very quickly. Of course, if you're broke, you buy whatever you can afford, even if it may not be the most nutritious. And of course, if you had money, you would make different choices about certain things. You'd probably be more available for the family, for the children, as they grow up, etc., rather than working, taking every shift you can get under the sun, and leaving the children to be raised by television and all sorts. And I know what I'm talking about. Many, especially of our people, moved into this country. We exchange children and keys at the door. Husband comes in, wife goes out, and the two are like ships passing in the night. And many marriages are broken down, and it's around trying to make this money thing work. And of course, think about the Good Samaritan. He wouldn't be called good if he only had a good heart. He also had money. I think it was Margaret Thatcher who said, we wouldn't remember the Good Samaritan if he only had a good intentions. He had money as well. He paid for the hospital bill. That needs money. Not go well, brother, I hope you get well. And then finally, I think we talked about that in the morning. Money management is part of good stewardship. So, very important subject. And how we manage our finances, of course, will affect our overall health and well-being. And by health, we're talking about, our emotional health, our physical health, our mental health, relationships. We talked about marriage earlier, etc., etc. Very, very important. And many families are struggling. And there are many reasons for this, and I cannot trivialize this. There are many reasons. It's not just, oh, you're struggling, you must be bad with money. No. Okay, there are many circumstances at play very often. What do you think are some of the triggers of financial stress in families? Debt is a big one. Yeah. Anything else? Overspending, not living within our means. Yeah. Selfishness. Would you like to break that down, brother? He said what? But he's right. He is right. Children ain't cheap. And it's very important to remember that children are a blessing. We have 4. The elder did mention. We have 4. And we love all of them. Yeah, we're keeping all of them, by the way, in case you're thinking, do you want to give away one? No, we're keeping all of them. They're all lovely, beautiful. Yet. Okay, so that's true, yeah. So just one last point on children. Very often we forget, when we were younger and planning a family, I never really bargained for the fact that once you cross the magic 3 number, then you need a 6 or 7-seater car. And they are more expensive. And road tax and everything, and God forbid it's an automatic as well, because my wife drives automatic, then it's even more expensive. When you go on holiday, you can't just book one room. It's got to be more than that. Your house, eventually, they're on top of each other as they grow. They need more space. Although my mom and dad raised 9 in a 3-bedroom now. You can't do that in this country, in England. But anyway, good point. And it's worth bearing that in mind, okay, within limits, yeah. One friend of mine was telling me they are paying £2,800 a month for their 2 kids who are toddlers to be in childcare, in childcare. £2,800 a month. And I thought, wow.
Sir, Bible said wisdom, and wisdom. Yes. So if we spend money with the wisdom, can we not sort it out this problem?
Okay, absolutely. And this is why we are here. This is what we are discussing. We want to be wiser. That's right. Thank you. Any other triggers for financial stress? Yes, thank you. A couple more and then we move on.
I was going to say Christmas, like buying gifts.
Oh. You want to spoil Christmas. But that's true. Sometimes Christmas and parties, and by the way, my son is turning 16 tomorrow, and we have a few people coming over. And it started off as, I want to have my friends to come along. And then it mouthballed into something bigger. And I thought, okay, please, let's stop right there. So Christmas is like that as well. You can have Christmas on this budget, or you can have Christmas on that budget, or you can have Christmas on that budget. And by the way, Christmas is not an emergency. It comes every year on the same date. And so once we finish with Christmas for this year, we know the next Christmas will be on the 25th of December. If it's important in our family, we can decide, what's our budget for next Christmas? £200, £500, whatever the amount. Okay, we have 12 months till Christmas. £500 divided by 12. Every month, we need to put away X amount, assuming we are disciplined enough not to touch that money over the next 12 months. That's the next bit. And it can be done. Okay? So whatever the case, there's no excuse. First of all, do Christmas within a budget, your budget, but also plan ahead. That's stewardship.
I think we use the money which doesn't belong to us. The money which is, we don't have that money, then we end up using, it doesn't belong to us.
Okay, break it down. Give us, call it the way it is. What money are you talking about? What are we talking about?
It's putting ourselves or myself in a debt
Okay.
buying something with the money which I don't have and
it,
say,
that's true.
I'll pay back.
Yeah.
So you are eating money in
tomorrow's
advance,
Yeah.
which you don't have.
As yet.
Then the problem comes.
That's true. That's a
Then
good one.
stress comes.
That's a good one.
Then I
Absolutely.
need
We'll take
depression.
one last one from my excited young brother. Yes. What's your name, by the way? Tell us.
My name is Imhotep.
Imhotep. Great
So
name.
earlier you were talking about overdraft.
Yes.
So that's one thing. Then you have
Yeah.
loans, you have your credit
Credit
cards, all these different things where you
Yeah.
buy now, pay later schemes for things online. Those are everywhere now.
Yep.
All these kind of different subscriptions, all these different
Oh
stuff
my
that gets you now.
goodness.
So that's it.
Yeah, that's a lot you've mentioned there. All those things, many of them have their place. From time to time, you may need a subscription for something, whatever it is. I won't give any examples just because he said we can have Netflix. And trouble in the home. Dad, he said we can have Netflix. No. So you can have whatever, but just be aware of what's coming in and what's going out. Here are a few examples from my research. Okay, is a quick one. Mike, just wait for the mic. Thank you. Thank you, Elder.
Jobs that doesn't pay enough to cover the household expenses, that can create a great amount of stress.
Absolutely. Thank you that you mentioned that one. Sometimes as Adventists, we're too modest. And it's hurting us. I tell my children I would like them to be happy. I would like them to continue to serve God. But I would like them to look at careers that will actually pay them well. I would like them to look at careers that will not compromise their faith, but careers that actually are well paying as well. This is the reality. Because otherwise it's just a struggle right from the word go. So when we're looking at options, and you can be gifted in an area, that gift can be applied in many different ways. There's no just one single direction you can go with a gift. And this what I do as an academic, and I speak to young people about options, etc. And so I say to my children, if you feel called to be a medical doctor, go for it. If you want to be a pilot, go for it. If you want to be, but think about what it means to be a pilot, and what it will involve, and we'll find a pilot you can speak to so that you find out what their life is like before you get into it. If you want to be a dentist, go for it. But sometimes I think as Adventists we aim too low and hit. Okay? There's nothing wrong with telling our young people to say, well, look, whatever God has placed on your heart, as long as it's ethical, not going to be, no dead bodies along the way, and it's not going to compromise your faith, go for it. Go for it. I'm not going to stipulate what, careers people should look at, because it depends on so many things. So yeah, low incomes are a problem, and it's not the end of the world. Things can be changed. You can upgrade your skills. In this country, honestly, if you were in Zambia, I would say, okay, we have some challenges to sort out. But in this country, there's so many options to upgrade your skills and to get to where you want to get to. Even if it takes another 5 years, have a plan of where you want to be in 5 years' time. Not 5 years, 10 years after leaving school, it's still 10 grand a year you're earning. Well, okay, but that's not good. You can earn more. That's why we said earlier, earn all you can. Save all you can. Invest all you can. Spend prudently, but also give generously. So if that's something obviously somebody needs to talk about, I'm happy to talk one-to-one on that. But some of the issues are there, and one of the biggest one for me is financial illiteracy, which just means lack of know-how around the areas of finance. So if you want to do well financially, invest a bit of time in educating yourself about better ways to manage your finances, better ways to grow your money, better ways to make your money work for you harder than you're working for it. Otherwise, you'll have to always need to work till you drop dead. Okay?
Should this not be a part of the curriculum?
Oh.
Finance in school?
Thank you, Elder. It should be, but somehow I tend to think for a long time it was in certain groups of people's interest that it is not, because they profited from our ignorance. And that's the cynical me, by the way. This is not gospel truth. It's just me thinking. Otherwise, why shouldn't, but it's getting better. I know in Zambia, the current president is an economist, is an Adventist. It was part of the sermon, but I cut it out due to time. He's an Adventist, he's an economist. His biggest opponents when he was vying for presidents were Adventists. Now his biggest supporters are Adventists. Because when the righteous rule, what does the Bible say? The people flourish, rejoice. When the wicked rule, you should look at Zambia before 2021. I had vowed I will never go back to Zambia because of the state in which it was. But now I've completely changed my mind. Okay, all right. So the point I was trying to make is they've started a curriculum in personal finance. He says while he was at university, he bought a piece of land. While he was at university, from his stipend in Zambia, of course, context, okay? You might not be able to do that here in the UK, okay? But it still says he put a bit of money aside for investments. Now he's arguably the wealthiest people in Zambia. Those who've got their wealth legally. Okay, we exclude thieves and crooks. But anyway, so effectively, it's now instituted a financial literacy curriculum to change things for the future generation. So I would like to argue that one of the big aspects to look at is that area of financial know-how. Otherwise, the next generation will make the same mistakes we made, and the next generation, and the next generation. And that's not great. Some of the aspects there I will not go into, but someone I'm sure is looking at black tax. What's that? Black tax is the financial burden that black people especially, and Asians, etc., ethnic minorities have to pick up the pieces from past generations. Primary reason I moved to the United Kingdom was that I was the third born in a family of 9. There was no way my siblings would ever finish school and college, etc., if something didn't change in terms of finances. So I moved to the UK to try and earn a bit more and put them through school and university. Thank God everybody who wanted a degree has got one. Okay? Only one who decided they want to live their life completely differently. Okay? So we look after my mom now. We take turns, 8 of us. So it takes 8 months before I have to send my obligatory contribution to mom, because the whole family is now financially stable. Okay? In between, we do still, say, was thinking of you, But the point we're trying to make is we have to empower each other and empower especially the next generation. Otherwise, those guys would be sending WhatsApp messages now asking for money. Thankfully, nobody does. Okay, even if they tried, they'll be wasting their time. Because if you are a teacher, you are whatever, you need to live within you. You have an income. They all have an income. So we did what we needed to do. Moving on very quickly, the Bible says, God wishes for us, above all things, to prosper in all things, and be in health. And I think that includes finances, because if our finances are in disarray, our health, physical health, will suffer. Our relationships will suffer. Everything else will suffer. Okay? We won't even be able to afford noodles, well, I'm told they are cheaper than most things. I don't know if it's true. Not anymore. Oh dear. Okay, so bad example. Forget that. Bad examples. Okay. This, if you forget anything else, just in case you think, oh, it was all about money, money, money. It's money in the context of Christian stewardship. And the reason for that is if we thrive, the Church of God thrives. Elder Cock? Brother Cock? Yeah, elder in my culture, is anybody older than you? Okay, so Brother Cock, but Elder Cock to me, okay? Was telling me earlier about the church and its needs and the roof that is, just needs replacing, and we need money. The church needs money. But the church needing money means that money needs to come from somewhere. And if we all broke, where will it come from? But take away. Quick mic, and then yeah, sure.
I'm saying, why not government help us to carry on the church? They should give us some donate.
Who, sorry?
They should.
The government. Okay.
They should give us donation in all.
Right. Good one. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't know about that.
It's rather a complicated question,
complicated,
but we can deal with it at another time. It's quite big. We've already done it once, but we can
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm told you had lottery funding already. Anyway, no scheme of business or plan of life can be sound or complete if it only embraces the brief years of this present life and makes no provision for the unending future. What is that saying? Ellen G. White book, Education, page 145. So as we emphasize financial stewardship, as I teach my children about finances, there has to be that caveat that, by the way, all this is temporary. Ultimately, I want you in the kingdom. I want you in heaven. I would rather have you in heaven. I would rather have you broke here on earth and in heaven than loaded here on earth and miss heaven. Okay? So that's ultimately. But I would also rather have you doing well here so that you can help your siblings, your family, your church, etc., and still be in heaven. You can have both. Okay? You may not be able to have money as your God and God as your God. That's not possible. But you can thrive financially and still thrive spiritually. And this is an area where Adventists have, Adventists who have met, have this mixed sort of mixed messages that we send in sermons and whatever, and therefore young people sometimes think, oh, it's pointless to aspire to anything because, money is bad. Well, the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil, rather than money itself. And Ellen G. White says, selfishness is the root of all evil. And I thought, well, if the love of money is the root of all evil, and selfishness is the root of all evil, mathematically, these two things must be at least equivalent or equal. The love of money must be selfishness, greed. Okay? Any quick questions on there, and then we'll run through a few points. I think this is why I like to control things myself, because when I look at the time, I can judge which slide I can skip, etc. But we can't do that today.
The subject matter, that's perfect. I was just talking to some people, millennials, this afternoon about that very thing.
Wow.
The quandary that we have in the church around the amount of money one has is difficult, because like you were saying, we seem to think that money is not a good thing to have. If you're buoyant and you have money, then somehow you're not a particularly righteous individual, when it's not that. It's the love and the selfishness. And I think it leads on to, for example, even in the political arena, in knowing that where do I put my tick at the end of the day, who I want, where do I put it, and why, and understanding your heart as to why you put your tick in either one box on the left or another box on the right. So it's all part of it, but you're quite right, and I thank you for your conversation.
Keep those conversations going with our millennials, and hopefully, they can get some things right or most things right. Okay. Luke 14:28, famous Bible verse. Suppose one wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? Well, those are Jesus' words. If you want to undertake a project, you need to think about the cost. You need to calculate the cost. You need to estimate the cost. By the way, that's in British career system, that's the quantity surveying profession. Okay? It's all about cost estimating and in the context of construction, of course. But in our context, every month we do get paid or have some income, and we need to count the cost in terms of we need to estimate whether we have enough to be able to meet our various outgoings, our various commitments. Okay, both short-term, medium-term, as well as long-term. And very often, of course, the Bible text has wider implications about discipleship and all. But literally, in its literal sense, from a project management point of view, before you embark on that project, the roof there, make sure you've got some estimate of how much it's going to cost. Otherwise, you have what in management they call escalation of commitment. You know, you thought it would just be a few thousands of pounds, so you get started. But you reach a point where you're too far gone in that turning back is just maybe a non-starter. And so you have to carry on and complete it. By the time you've completed it, you spend £1 million or £2 million. And you think, wow, could we have bought another building? No, I'm not talking about the church. I'm just making a general comment here. Could we have done things differently? And you know, with hindsight is always, exactly. So I like to talk about money management and start with this foundation of budgeting. And the reason is that monkey there was me at some point, okay? In the sense of the definition of budgeting there. A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went all the time. And most families I speak to couldn't tell you how much they can tell you how much they're paying for rent. They can't tell you precise amount they're spending on, let's say, food or groceries in a month. It depends. Okay. Once I hear that it depends, then I know, Houston, we do have a problem. Okay. Now, do we spend to the last penny and whatever? No, we have broad boundaries, as in what is our weekly allocation for food and groceries? What's our monthly allocation for food and groceries? If we overspend 1 week, it means the next week we may have to make some adjustments. The problem is if we have no clue, no boundaries, then we just keep going and we end up with 5,000 in overdraft. Remember the example I gave earlier on? And so it's very important part of stewardship to know what's coming in and where will we send it to. Not post-mortem. Post-mortem is the approach most Christians use. They can look back and tell you where their money went with a bit of luck, okay? With a bit of luck. They can tell you where the money went. But the idea is you must tell your money where to go in advance of paycheck coming in. If you get paid on the 30th, before the 30th, a budget must be done and agreed if there's another significant other. Okay, now there's another topic on how to split finances in families, in marriage. It's a very sensitive one. Okay, ideally, your money should, on paper, on the budget, should all be pulled together, as in, I bring in $2,000, you bring in $2,000, that's our income. Okay, what are we going to do with our $4,000? Doesn't always work like that. There are so many different models of sharing finances in these homes. If only you were a financial coach, you would be amazed. Is that? Yeah. One good sister said, well, you are the breadwinner. You are the provider. And my money is going back, I won't mention the country, it's going back home to help my family. And he was to pay the rent and food and everything. And initially, when he had a good job, it was okay. But eventually, he got made redundant. He had to switch jobs. The income wasn't enough. And he said, well, look, I ain't earning enough to keep the family, And it didn't end well. They are divorced. Okay? They are divorced. Money is just something else. Ellen G. White in the book Adventist Home, page 374, says, how many people? Did you see that? All should learn how to keep accounts. It doesn't say accountants. By the way, she's not saying everyone should be an accountant. She's just saying all should learn to manage their finances. I ain't good with numbers. I ain't a good steward. Well, of course, if your significant other is good with numbers, or with, and you are happy for them to lead, that's okay too. Okay, I met a brother earlier who said he worked overseas. I made quite a bit of money, and all the money he was making, he would just say, look, my dear wife, sort it out. I don't know, this is what I'm getting, but you organize it. And she was brilliant at it. That's another way of doing things. But I'm reminded that all of us are stewards. So we should have an input in what's happening. And she says some neglect this work as non-essential. But this is wrong. All expenses should be accurately stated, meaning there has to be a plan, and that plan needs to be followed through. Now, the plan may change, because things happen. But the better we get at it, the less surprises we will have. Okay? We'll have some contingency planning, some emergency fund for emergency. Going to church once, and the tire just goes. On the way to church. It won't choose. The car won't choose. You've got to sort it out. Winter, a couple of years ago, the heating just all, actually we had a gas leak. And an engineer says, dangerous, turned it all off. And so you've got to get somebody else to locate the leak and sort it out. I think we spent £750, just like that. Got to have an emergency fund, especially if you own that home. If you don't, the landlord is responsible for sorting it out. Once so there's a lot, and we cover all those in different sessions. But the point is we need to have a better plan going forward of managing our finances. Quick one, yes. Pass it on. I am looking at my time. It's now 5 o'clock. 4 minutes to 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking, you know, focus. You pay a landlord every month, let's say 300. And for the process of time, maybe 5 years, you've been living in that dwelling. You check the amount of money that you've been paying to that landlord, and that landlord is getting rich. Why not, in the same instance, put aside 300 every month, equivalent to that, and you could be within the same, you know, because many of us, you know, we have plans, but then at some point in time, you know, we don't stick to that plan because we are not focused.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, that is
Thank
another
you.
way,
Thank you.
you know, to make it.
Thank you. So that's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up, especially for our younger people. You know, always have as part of your plan to potentially own your own home as quickly as you practically can. Okay, it's usually a very good idea for most people to aim for home ownership. Say most people, because we talked about low incomes there. If you're getting 10 grand a year, God help you. Yeah. But for most people, we need to think about home ownership. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but we rented and rented and rented some more. And it wasn't cheap. One day I did the numbers after waking up from that slumber. Amount of money we paid in rent, I think it was over 100 grand in rent. Now, obviously, for the privilege to live in somebody's house. But hey, that would have taken off 15 years or more of our mortgage. And looking back, we just made excuses. It's not possible, it's difficult, it's, you know. But think about home ownership as part of the plan. It is possible. You need to be more intentional. But obviously, be aware that once you own the home, you have other costs that come with it, which you then need to start planning for. Otherwise, you be like one of my friends, the heating was down for, I think it was a year or so, you know, and they were just like, if you come and visit me, you need to bring blankets or something in winter. It was literally cold. And I thought, brother.
It's an interesting statement that, again, is what we were talking about with the millennials upstairs, in that the idea of owning one's own home, as I you briefly just said, does have its benefits, but the alternative sell in terms of renting is that you don't have any problems yourself. True. If you have a broken window, broken floorboard, a broken door, get somebody else to do it. So in that whole conversation, there's also the other side that millennials will be influenced by, the idea that, do I have to have the struggle and the problems that my mum and dad have had, or should I just send it to somebody else?
Okay, that's a very good point. So we did say that there's a balance. Short term, obviously, you're better off renting. Rent for as long as you can, okay? But what is as long as you can? 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? It depends on what your plan is ultimately. So we all have different life plans in terms of where you're going. But having said that, it doesn't have to be even your own home where you're going to live in. It could be a buy-to-let. It could be a holiday. It could be a buy-to-let in a nice area. I know somebody, a young person, who's got a nice place in a desirable place where they make quite good money. Yeah. Now, obviously, you need to research that very well to see how you can manage. If you don't live in the area, who does your cleaning, who you give them a little contract, how do people get the keys? There's so many, somebody has got it figured out. Let's put it that way. So whatever you're thinking of, somebody has got it figured out, okay? I know Robert Kiyosaki talks about your home is not an investment. No, it's not an asset. It is an investment, in my opinion. It's not an asset because it takes money from you. You're paying. It is not putting money in your pocket. So you might want to think about it completely different. But long term, most of us will need some kind of assets. Otherwise, our net worth, you better put that money somewhere else. As in good investments with financial advice, hopefully good financial advice, not just any financial advice. So you better have a plan, okay? Quick one, Elder.
Yes, when I was about 25, I already had my own property. And one of my colleagues that I work with, I always encouraged him to buy the property that he was living in because he was renting.
Yep.
And he made the point that, if the gutter is blocked or whatever, he doesn't have that responsibility. But the council or whoever would come and put it right. And so it's true, they would do that. But then, some years later, I met him, and he says to me, Dave, the best advice you have ever given is to tell me to buy that property that I'm living in, up in Tankerton area of Preston. And he's bought that property. And he was chuffed. He was chuffed, elated that he had the responsibility of buying the property, and having bought the property, the time come when the mortgage was paid, the property is his, and well,
the value
Bob's
has
uncle, yes,
significantly gone up.
My father always says to us children, children, you can never work with your 10 fingers to earn a living. You must invest. You must invest. Some of us have taken it on. Others have do what they want to do. But it's best to have a financial advisor. It's good to have good counsel and take advice from parents. Those of us who take advice from parents, it pays dividends a great deal.
Amen. I'm really glad you mentioned that. You had a wise father there. Absolutely. So obviously this is not financial advice. Financial advice is specific to your circumstances. So if you're 18, you're 19, you're 20, well, the advice could be different for you. So if you need to make a major decision, you need to speak to somebody to look at your specific circumstances. And you might need to do things completely differently. Okay? And I take your point earlier, my brother. Yes. Oh, thank you.
Yes, there's a couple of questions on Zoom. One was, why is home ownership important?
Okay.
And the other one, I think, it popped down there, but I can't see it anymore. But it was someone saying, is home ownership not taking yourself another huge debt?
Right. Okay, that's a good one. Oh, do we have the time? Okay. Briefly speaking, home ownership is just one form of investment, okay? You buy that property, no, I'm not allowed to say this, but you buy that property, I was going to give my own example, you buy that property, let's say, for 150K or 200K, whatever. 5 years later, 10 years later, you think it will be worth 250K? No. All things being equal, it will be worth a lot more. In that time, if you did something completely different, you were just renting, you would just still be renting. You have no assets. 20 years later, you've paid for that home, you've got an asset that's worth X amount. Let's say 3, 4, 500K. You could do whatever you like with it. You want to move to Greece, Uh, you know, if you think you can get a cheaper property there for 100K, as an example, and I'm just picked Greece randomly, you can move there, sell your property here, or Zambia, buy a property there for 100K, and you've got 400K to play with, in inverted commas. If that's invested well, you could live comfortably off the returns from that, let's say, 300, 400K, etc. So home ownership is one of the one of the simplest investments to make. It's not easy in the sense that you've got to raise a deposit, you've got to do whatever you need to do, but also you've got to manage the property as you go along. But in terms of the banks, they are more likely to lend you money to buy your first home than to start a business. Okay? That's why I said it's the simplest investment, because you're going to live in there. You're not running. You're not going anywhere. If you do, they have the house. They can repossess it and sell it, etc. That's why we generally talk about the importance of home ownership, because you're putting money in an investment in real estate that tends to appreciate in value over time. If you didn't do that, you better have an alternative, better or equivalent plan. Otherwise, 20 years later, your brother has an asset they can call their own. They're no longer paying rent. You're still paying rent, and you have no asset. They are not paying rent, and they have an asset, meaning something of value they can sell, whereas you're still paying rent and you have zero assets. That's how I look at it. That's why I'm saying long-term, it's worthwhile looking at that. It's easier to get in, and then once you've got that first property, if it appreciates in value, with advice, you can always buy a second property, of course with advice, and you've done your numbers, etc., which could be a buy-to-let, preferably, more sort of Airbnb type. But you need to do thorough research and get good advice on that one. What was the second point? Second question. Oh, debt. Oh, yeah. Well, unfortunately, in Western countries, actually the whole world now, properties are as expensive as they are not because materials and construction cost what it costs. I know we say that's what it costs. I'm a construction sort of cost whatever, manager, etc. But it's because debt is easily available. If nobody could lend you $250K for a mortgage to buy a house, if nobody could borrow that money, you think anybody would be selling houses for $250K? Who's going to buy them? Nobody. So unfortunately, we are where we are. We are where we are. Unless Bill Gates is your uncle, you may have to take a mortgage, and if you want to buy a house, just do your due diligence. Make sure it is affordable, and don't buy too much house. Too much house is house that is, if interest rates just go up slightly, then you can no longer afford to service the debt. That's tricky. When we moved into our house, our rent versus our mortgage was less than £100 difference, and of course we went for a bigger house. We have 4 kids, and Madame couldn't take the idea that I was raised in a 3-bedroom house, 9 of us. And says, no, we're not doing that. This ain't Zambia. Okay, so we need at least a 4-bed house, in which case the 2 boys will share 1 bedroom. Fair enough, because 5-bed house, can't afford that on the salary of a teacher. But anyway, so in order to upgrade to a bigger house, obviously, we needed to pay more than we were paying on a 3-bed for rent. So our rent versus mortgage was just under £100 more. But yeah, we did the numbers, it works. In some places, Northeast especially, you can pay more or less what you're paying for your rent on a mortgage. Some cases a little bit less. I'm not saying move to Sunderland or Newcastle. All right. I hope that's it for the questions. Of course, Solomon says, wise planning will watch over you, understanding will keep you safe. And that's Proverbs 2, verse 11. Very, very important. Now, I want to do something slightly different. Of course, we talked about this earlier. Sometimes that's the problem. We buy stuff that we don't need. In some cases, which we can't truly afford. We feel we can afford it because we can afford the monthly repayments, but we don't look at the total cost. Just look at the monthly. We buy stuff we don't need, which we sometimes can't afford, which we sometimes will never really use. You might use once, that's about it. And sometimes to impress people who we probably don't even like, or they don't like us. Or maybe they just couldn't even care less. Whether you're driving a BMW or a Skoda, they just don't care. You know, and nothing wrong with driving a nice car. I like myself a nice car. Okay. But the point I'm making is make your decisions based on your values, but also based on your income. If need be, upgrade that income, if need be. But if you upgrade your income and upgrade your wants as well, you're back in the same place. I was speaking to a young couple recently. Husband got a very, very good job following my advice. He hopefully won't be the cupbearer situation. No. And effectively doubled their income. He doubled his income, okay, and starting soon. And so now the question is, whoa, with all that money, I think we should look to move house. This place isn't really a good area. And it starts very slowly, it's not a very good idea, there's a bit of rubbish around, people throw dirty mattresses that they're fly tipping, and it's not really a good idea. But you've lived there for X amount of years, and nobody has thrown any rubbish in your house. Nobody has done you any harm. But all of a sudden, because the income goes up, the expenditure must go up to match the income. So the young man, I shouldn't say too much, the young man did the numbers and said, well, if we moved house and if we did this as now the pressure that's coming, we'll just be in the same position that we currently are. Because that extra income will be just sucked into. I said, well, that's another way. Well, at least you'll be living high. I didn't say that. I said, well, resist the temptation. Always keep a margin between your income and your expenses. If your income increases, your expenses, yes, will increase because you were living quite tightly, etc. So yes, do increase your expenses, but not to match your income. It just doesn't take a genius to work out that if you did that, you're in the same place, and you will never thrive financially. You will look like you're thriving because you're renting a big house and you're driving a big car. But if that job, that contract is cancelled, like my brother in the sermon earlier, for the next 5 years, he didn't have a job. After that not my blood brother, but a friend, didn't have a job for the next 5 years. I thought, wow. So be careful with the decisions that we made. Peer pressure is real. It's not just for kids. It's for wives too. And husbands. Before I get stoned, I had to add husbands. And husbands' toys are usually bigger and more expensive. Oh, I just think we need to upgrade this car because he wants to rest with it. No. Give the brother a mic. And then we'll, I think, look at an example budget. And I think we'll wind up on that another 15 minutes, if that's okay. Yes, Elder.
I think sometimes the problem that arises is people live their lives thinking of what other people will think about them. So, for example, you're talking about the fact that someone is a lecturer and probably coming on a bicycle. And probably someone will say, if I'm a lecturer and people see me on a bike, obviously that's not acceptable for some people. But sometimes you find we live a life because we are worried what the next person will say.
And even when the next person might not even be thinking about us. Some people do. Some people think about us and judge us by the car we drive, the house we live in, the area we live in, and all those things. But so what? At any given time, the point is make the best decisions that are in your best interest, that are consistent with your values and beliefs, etc. And also your goals, where you're trying to go. Otherwise, you get sucked into normal. And normal is broke. Okay, normal is broke. Looking good, but broke. It's one way to live. Don't get me wrong. It's one way to live. It's fine if that's what one chooses. But you can choose things, you can choose a slightly different approach. So thank you for that one. I think so there's a couple of slides on budgeting principles. I just want to go on one, which these are just the benefits of budgeting. I want to go, so when do you budget? When should you budget? I suggest, generally speaking, you need to have a long-term plan, but you also need a short-term plan. And that short-term plan is a monthly review of your expenditure. That takes into account as well a bit of long-term issues. You'll see in a moment. The last slide I want to look at, oh, this is the one, yeah, is I recommend what we call a zero-based budgeting approach. Accountants, if you're an accountant, I might confuse you here because what you might refer to as zero-based budgeting might be slightly different. But what it simply means is that at the end of your budgeting process, there should be no money in the plan left unallocated. Now, the received wisdom is you must always have a surplus. That's good, but guess what? By the end of the month, you don't know where that surplus went to. Whether it was to pizza, the health ministries might have a word. Okay, anyway, I digress. It could be anything. So zero-based budgeting says write down. By the way, did I say write down? Oh, I budget in my head. No, it's not a budget. Call it something else. Budgeting is intentional. Write it down. Whether it's by pen, whether it's on a spreadsheet, whether it's on an app, millennials, brother, there are apps for it. Write it down. How much is coming in? So right now, what's the date? Okay, we are on the 8th of July, so a little bit early for the budget. But as we get closer to the end of the month, at least a week, 2 weeks, minimum a few days before the end of the month, what's coming in? If it's consistent, regular income, we know what's coming in. Put it down, write it down. If it's both incomes, if you're married, then put it all down. Total, if you're doing money together. Majority of couples don't do money together. But that's another subject for a marriage retreat. So write down how much money is coming in. Both incomes if you're doing money together as a couple. If not, then whatever you've agreed, I contribute 75% of total expenses, you contribute 25%, whatever it is. There are different models out there, and I talk about those in another session. Then list your expenses. By expenses, I'm not talking about baked beans, yogurt, no, the big headings, and we'll see them very quickly on a spreadsheet. The big categories, so rent, okay, bills as in electricity, gas, water, all the major expenses, and then groceries and food, one big category, okay? You can separate them if you want. It's up to you what detail you go to. List your expenses or the categories. Focus both on the short term, but also on the long term. And by long term, we are saying there are some expenses which are not due this month, but are due Christmas. Who said Christmas earlier? Christmas is one example. If you want a good Christmas, if it is important in your family, maybe you should start thinking about it now in July. It's a bit late, but you should start thinking about it and allocate a portion every month towards a Christmas fund, okay? And whoever is best keeping money without touching it, should be responsible for that account. Okay, that's another subject. And then balance that budget. Make sure income, sorry, the other way around. Actually, I should change that. It's not expenses minus income. It's income minus expenses should be equal to 0. Okay? And that means you've allocated tithe. Did I say tithe? You've allocated offerings, however God has blessed you. You've allocated everything, including savings, investments, whatever it is, what your priorities are allocated, including eating out if millennials, I know I've got teenagers, I sometimes ask them, where do you get all the money? You can afford to eat out all the time. Okay. My daughter is at uni and she's got a job in Sainsbury's as well at the moment since uni is off. So leaving rent-free and no bills to pay. I keep saying, you're saying you're planning to move, down south, whatever. You need to save money. Otherwise, you don't know how much it costs to live on your own. You'll be down south for that month. You'll be hit by everything like that, and you'll be working 20 hours or more at uni, which won't be very good if you're overworking while you're at uni. You should work, because I think students have too much time on their hands. Well, my students, okay? I was just looking at their timetable recently. 2 days in uni, 1 extra day where there's 2 hours, and the other 2 days, no classes. What are you doing with those 2 days free? Should get a job. Parents, don't just send money to the youngsters. Encourage them to get a job. They do have plenty of time at their hands, twiddling their thumbs, and do their assignments last minute. Still, despite all that time. But anyway, it depends on what course they're doing. Some courses have lots of placements, like nursing and radiography and whatever. So you get the point. So eating out must be on the budget if it's important to you. Decide how many times are we going to eat out. On an average, how much do we spend? And work out. And once that budget for eating out, that fund allocation is spent, consider yourself broke. The problem is, you finish the eating out fund, but you still want to eat out. Well, okay, you don't print money. You don't work for Bank of England or whatever. You can't print money. So the money has to come from somewhere. From your regular food budget, from your transport and walk to wherever, or it's got to come from somewhere. It's a zero-based budget. Unfortunately, many of us don't have that level of discipline, but that's where we should be aiming to. Have categories of expenses that we agree, this is our food budget. And on average, when you go out to buy that food on a weekly basis, it's £80, and that's it. You spend more than 80, and you're taking a little bit from next week, and a little bit from the other week. You aren't manufacturing, unless you take on an extra shift. Okay. So balance that budget. The difference between the income and the expenses must be equal to 0. And of course, that last bit is important. You must track those expenses. And it gets better. Initially, when you start, it's a bit like riding a bicycle. I taught myself to ride a bicycle all those many years back home. An uncle of mine left a bicycle at home. I went to another city by bus and whatever, and I thought, great, I'm going to learn to ride a bike before he comes to collect his bike. And I did. Thank God I didn't destroy that bike, because the number of times I fell off that bike, unbelievable. Okay, but I learned to ride a bike. Within, I think it was like 3-4 days that he was away. Yeah, okay. Where there's a will, there is a way. So when you learn, when you start budgeting or managing money prudently, it'll feel a bit like riding a bicycle. You fall off 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Give yourself some, be kind on yourself. But get better every month in predicting the likely cost. Because the food budget, you may have thought £80 a month for a family of 6 is enough. And then you a week, I say. And then you realize, what? Not enough. We have 4 big lads. They're bigger than me, okay? And you buy whatever it is on Sunday when we usually do the shopping. By Tuesday, it's as if you never went shopping. It's all gone. I thought there was bread. What bread? It's gone. You finish having a regular meal in the evening. Usually we have it early, 6 p.m., 7 p.m. latest. 10 p.m., somebody's in the kitchen and they're frying 3 eggs and 3 slices of bread. But it's 10 p.m., son, you need to be sleeping. You're going to work tomorrow morning. Well, but I'm hungry. I'm hungry. How can you come back from that? Lad is hungry. So eventually you realize, okay, 80 pounds, it doesn't work. We need to up that. But because your income remains the same usually, then you need to, okay, something is going to give. Something has to give. Either you earn more, as we said, or you reduce your savings, or you reduce something else. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's the level of discipline that it requires. The tracking, you can do it in different ways. Most of us do online banking these days, and so there's real-time information on what you're spending. Some of us even have alerts. Once you've bought something at Aldi, you get a text message, 23 pounds spent at Aldi. So no surprises and that. I just want to show you very quickly, if you can just share the budgeting template, the spreadsheet, just to show an example of the categories I'm talking about. And if you want a copy of that, by the way, I think I do have it. I said keep it simple. You can take a screenshot of that QR code, or you can point at it. It should take you to a link where you can open up an Excel spreadsheet. For those who like Excel spreadsheet, I use Excel spreadsheet every day. So that's me. Millennials apps. Just go on the internet and say best apps for budgeting in the UK. And you get a list, a review in terms of pros and cons, etc., and choose one which works. Try one. If it doesn't work, go for another one. But some of you might find digital banks very helpful, like Starling and Monzo and others. Some of you are looking at me, what are you talking about? The millennials probably know what I'm talking about. Okay, Starling, I use Starling for my general sort of organizing of finances. Why? Because on the NatWest app, you can't have different pots which you call the different names that you've allocated that money for. On Starling, I can say Mom's July or Mom's August fund or whatever. I can say savings for Greece holiday. and I put money in there. It stays in that pot until you withdraw it to the main account. And so you look that up. This is not a recommendation, but look it up. Look up digital banks. Martin Lewis, some of you know Martin Lewis, talks about this quite a bit. So read his review on Monzo and Starling and other digital banks. It's the best thing that happened to the way I sort of organize the finances personally. Okay? Even Lloyd's Bank does it now, so they've copied now. Yeah, that's good. NatWest as well allows you to open multiple bank accounts. But yeah, which is another way of doing it. I used to do that, but with Starling, it's one bank account, but you create pots within the same account. It's easy to manage. But multiple accounts is another approach I recommend, because then you can put that card away, far from you. If it's savings and it's different trust funds for holiday, for saving, for a deposit for a house, and it's easier that way. Whereas if it's in the same account, you have to be disciplined, because if you need the money, you just withdraw from that pot and spend it. Yeah.
I got a slightly different question.
Okay. Could you switch in the meantime to the Excel spreadsheet, and we'll just show you that you've got access to it, and then we'll close. Okay. Go on, bro.
Outside of using a credit card to make monthly bill payments and repaying that off, how can you grow your credit score?
Oh, good question. Ultimately, if you just put in that question in ChatGPT, I'm talking to a millennial, okay? ChatGPT, at least 10 ways I can improve my credit score. Honestly, and give references or whatever you want to ask, you will get excellent suggestions. Now you need to read them and understand them, because sometimes it will just go off on a tangent from time to time. But 90% of the time, excellent resource. But I'm not shying away from answering the question. I do that, by the way. If you open my laptop right now, my browser is open. ChatGPT is the first browser. Okay? Why should I spend a lot of emails? When I draft emails, I just write, and just put it in ChatGPT, edit that to come across professionally. I'm writing an email to a student, and it'll be re-edited, and I read it, of course, and most of the times, fantastic. Yeah, so I don't have to worry about, especially sensitive stuff where somebody has written to me and it's really, I want to come across very professional, very polite. Anyway, that's a millennial tip. Have a credit card, of course, if you must. If you do, pay it off regularly, because the interest, we were there. Every 3 years, because the interest rate is so high on credit cards. I think the average is now more than 19% of credit card interest rate on debt owed on credit cards. It's more than 19%. It used to be 18, but now it's way more, probably 20 by now. That means every 2.5 years or so, if you did nothing to the amount you owe, it'll basically double every 3 years, roughly every 3 years. So don't play with credit cards. Pay them off. Otherwise, you go deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. But the other thing, you need to be on the voters' roll. It's all about traceability. Credit score is about your footprint. So if you don't exist, you've never borrowed, you're not on the voters' roll, nobody knows about you, too risky to lend you money. So if you want to improve your credit score, then you need to be traceable within the financial services. It has its pros, it has its cons going forward, but there are a few suggestions online. Those two will be the main ones, but also don't default. don't default on anything. It's a black mark on your account which will stay there for 5 to 7 years. Even more, absolutely, even mobile phones, they are the worst culprit. Okay, I did that in my foolish years. It hurt me. I remember the bank said, can't lend you, there's a black mark on your. I said, what is it? Then they looked, Virgin Mobile. I said, but it was a mobile. I said, yep. You think I can't afford to pay a mobile? They said, well, sir, you failed to pay? Yeah. So simple things like that will work against you. Now, so just to introduce you, obviously, to that little spreadsheet, go and have a look at just as an idea for budgeting. Even if you're going to use apps, you're going to use handwritten, I don't care. Keep it simple. Whatever works for you, use it. The idea is income on the right side, all your income. Now, if you have side hustles, list them there. What are you expecting that month on income? Then expenses, and you can see at the top there is giving. Okay? Some of us think by not giving we'll have more money. Most of the wealthy people in this world are good givers. Okay, there's just something about giving that opens you up to abundance. If you are like this, you got all you got in your hands, that's it. Okay? Now give at your level. Thankfully, God doesn't want us to give a specific amount, as in, £1,000 or £100. Give what God expects of you according to the blessings He's given you. So giving, I won't push that too much. You know all about that as good Adventists. Then the home, or the rent, your bills, etc., etc. If you scroll down, mobile phones. Hey, I once did an audit of how much we pay on our Wi-Fi and the 6 and broadband and the 6 mobile phones in the home. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's a lot. And so when a mobile contract is ended, once we buy a kid a phone, when the contract is ended, that's it, SIM only. And it has to be way less than pounds a month, 10 pounds a month, usually 5, 6, 7. If you go on uswitch.com, great website, or other comparison site, it allows you to compare different SIM cards from different providers depending on what you're looking for. You'll be amazed. You're paying £20 and you think, there's a guy who will say, I've got a good deal, I pay £20 a month. I said, how much data? X amount. How much? You could pay £10 for that. Let's look at uswitch. So why? I know £20 is not a lot of money for some of you in here. But if you can pay £10, why should you pay £20? That's the point. Okay, scroll down a little bit and for the other categories, and then we'll see if there's any last question, and that'll be it. Thank you. So giving, home, what's next? Are we able to scroll down the spreadsheet? Nope. Oh, sorry. Thank you. My laptop has gone off. So then living, food and supplies, clothing. Some of you, I know you buy clothes every month. Oh. Yeah, the older you get, the more you realize some things are just not necessary, not important. But hey, my boys and girl, they've got to, I don't know, anyway. They're spending their own money. Of course, we have a plan. We have a plan. The young man who's working full-time job, I said, you can stay here, no rent, you don't buy food. You've got to save money for your first property. And I've got to see that regularly on a monthly basis. I've got to see your budget for the month. He's cool. He's good. Okay? Otherwise, you're not going to live rent-free on my expenses. I'm already struggling. And then you're just buying all kinds of nonsense. That's permissive parenting. Okay, so encourage your children to stay home as long as they can, but have a plan so that it puts them on a better platform, either for the rent that they need to pay when they move out, or even to buy their own property in the next 3 years. So my boy is on a degree apprenticeship, so I pay him 20K or so a year and pay for his fees as well. And I said, well, you have no student loan at the end of the course, and you have been working, and your income goes up every year. Why shouldn't you buy a property, whether you're going to live in it or holiday let or whatever it is, at the end of your apprenticeship? So that's the goal. Okay? I don't want him to buy a property at 45 or something, 40-something, the age I was. I want him to buy a property in his 20s, so that by 40, he's paid for it. And then he has a young family, more needs. Instead of paying rent or mortgage, he can go on holiday with the kids. He can stay at home if they need to and work less or whatever, you know. Money can buy you financial freedom, or freedom to do what you want to do, if you play your cards right at the beginning. Family, pets, pets, okay. Leisure, which includes eating out, etc., etc. I'll leave you, most of you have downloaded that. I'll leave you to go and have a look at it. But the bottom line is, if you scroll down to the end, in this example, which I usually do a workshop on, the family says, well, our income is £3,028.50, but our expenses £3,495. We are in red by £400. And elder, you're saying we should return tithe? Where do you want us to get the money from? Can't return tithe. Costs us more to live than we've got the money for. And that's where sometimes a financial coach can be very helpful, to look at that list religiously. Where is the money going? And should it be going there? Where can you spend less and have an equally good quality of life? And it is almost $3,000 a month. Is that a bad income? No. Unless you're in London, maybe, yeah. But if you're in the Northeast and maybe even here, you should be okay on $3,000. Yeah. You should live within that $3,000. But we didn't. It was always overdrawn. So if you're spending extra £400 every month into the red, how long will it take for you to exhaust the $5,000 overdraft? Let's say you had a silly overdraft like we did of 5,000. How many months? 10 months, roughly 10 months, a year. By the end of the year, if you don't learn to control your finances, your overdraft has been maxed out. Where do you go then? You won't be able to finance your family, etc. Okay, so I hope I've given you enough to think about. If there's more questions, etc., etc., the elder has my contact details. But also we have a hand there. I'll entertain that one if that's okay. And I hope you found some of it at least useful. Okay.
Yeah, most of the time we have been talking about making decisions, financially when we're alive. But we have to remember that, death is inevitable, and that we also have to make plans for death. Because you find that, when somebody dies, it's very expensive now. A casket alone costs $10,000.
Wow.
So we have to make provisions for that.
Okay. You do. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. We can. The brother wants a monument in his honor. I'm joking, but he makes a very, very good point. So So the point he's making, sorry? Yeah. So the point he's making is very valid. It costs money to live. Hello? You can tell this is one subject we should have covered. By the way, I do another session where I look at 10 principles of financial planning, and that is one of them, okay? And we talk about wills, we talk about planning for estate planning and tax planning, principles in that area. Of course, you need financial advice in those specific areas. We talk about life insurance. Yes, did I say life insurance? Yes. I know some Adventists are allergic to life insurance because they read an obscure quotation, obscure maybe is the wrong word, a quotation or two where Ellen White seems to suggest life insurance is bad. Now, obviously, with everything you read or hear, you need to contextualize it. And if you want to discuss that, we can talk about it. So, yes, we must have life insurance, especially if you have young children and or dependents. They don't have to be young. If a spouse is completely dependent on you for maintenance, etc., you need life insurance. And that life insurance doesn't have to be expensive. There are various kinds of life insurance, and I teach this, I do this. I even, declaration, I even do arrange life insurance policies for people. Okay, so I know what I'm talking about. It's a subject I've explored at length, both the spiritual side of things, but also how it works. If you come from Zambia or Zimbabwe and you think, oh, life insurance, isn't that a scam? It might be a scam in Zambia or in Zim, but not in this country. Not in this country. I know people who have passed on and left £500,000 for their family to pay off their house and have money that they could wisely invest, which could replace the income the breadwinner was bringing. Yeah. I know a friend who has £1 million in life insurance, works for the army, so military. So anyway, but that's another story. Is that a quick one? The brethren will crucify me.
I think also it's important for us to consider what the elderly years might bring on in terms of critical illness.
Yes.
Many of our mums and dads sadly are now suffering with Alzheimer's, dementia, may need 24-hour care, which is exceedingly expensive.
It is.
And so all of that has to be factored in because if they have property, the property is taken to help with their care. All of those things need to also be considered while you're 30s, 40s, 50-year-olds, because you never know.
And by the way, with good financial planning, which is what all the wealthy people do, they don't have their properties taken away to pay for care. The state pays for their care. But you and me who don't have much money end up having our properties sold to pay for our care. So speak to a financial advisor, a tax advisor, and a estate planner. And they'll show you how to organize your finances in such a way that you can still leave that property for your children. Okay? Duke of Westminster many years ago died and left, I think it was over £4 billion in estate, which paid zero in taxes. But if you and I have a property of £500,000 and you die, guess what? The first £325 is tax-free. Well, if you die and leave it to your spouse, there's no tax accruing. But when she dies, or he, that's when it's the biggest risk, because before it goes to your children, $325,000, I think is still the threshold, is tax-free. But the bit after that will be taxed at 40%. And so in this case, it might be $70K the kids have to pop out. If they don't have, the house needs to be sold first, HMRC get their 70 grand, then whatever is left can go to the kids. You thought you worked very hard and you were going to leave your house for the kids? Not without good financial planning, which is where financial planners, tax advisors, and estate planners come in. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. I think I will have to end it here. Was there? Yeah, I think Elder, I'll pass on to you. Part 2, I could do the 10 principles of financial planning. I could do that, God permitting. God permitting. But I've got to go to Newcastle tonight. Thank you. Thank you. God bless, and I hope you found some of that helpful.